What's up, Vetters? Patrick here with Vetted. Today we're talking about this. Here's the thing about me. I can't always say what I want to say, but I don't lie. I've known that it was Lou and his proxies who have been spreading the 2026-2027 date for the approach of an alien spacecraft for over a year.
You're not the only one that said this. 2027 keeps coming up, and you just said later this year or in 2027. Why is 2027 the year that everybody keeps throwing around? Because it doesn't seem random to me. Everybody seems to be saying 2027.
Yeah, I've heard 2027. I also heard 2036. The capacity in which I heard it, I'd rather not get into. I heard it when I was working with U.S. Space Force.
I've heard rumors behind the scenes that something is coming. It's 100% artificial. It is massive, and it's supposed to arrive sometime around the year 2027. I didn't hear this, by the way, from Jeremy Corbell. I don't know who he's heard that from. I don't know if it's the same people. I heard this from other people. I can tell you that there are insiders who are taking this very seriously. So I from what I can tell, it's something that was detected either by Space Force or some element of the intelligence community or NASA. And it's people are alarmed. It's not the 3i Atlas thing.
There is an alien spacecraft headed for Earth.
When?
2027.
Vetters, please hit that like button. That really helps out the videos. And of course, if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button, y'all. Okay, so what's today's video about? Well, to be honest, this is probably, if not the most important video I've ever made, or one of the most important videos I've ever made. So please share this video. I never asked that, and I'm asking that of you guys today. So let's move on, because this is about the 2027 alien threat rumor that's been floating around. I've made a few videos recently, but I'm putting a whole deep dive breakdown today. Now, I have a playlist that I've made of other previous videos. Okay, so I put a link in the description if you want to check out that playlist. It's like 10 different videos that I've made over the course of a couple years about this. All right, so I'm going to be bringing everything into one video today, essentially. But if you want even more information, go through that playlist. Now, today's video includes a lot of updated things that have been released about this and new revelations of who potentially, allegedly, may be behind these rumors. And it could be more than one person. And we're going to explore all of that, and one person in particular. But we'll get to that in a moment. Picture this. It's 7 a.m. You're rushing out the door. Breakfast? Forget about it. Or midday hits and you're staring at overpriced takeout, or just skipping lunch because, you know, who has time? Sound familiar? That's where Huel changes the game. With Huel's everyday powder or ready-to-drink shakes, you get a complete, nutritionally balanced meal in under a minute. Just shake it up or grab a bottle and go. Plant-based, designed by registered nutritionists, packed with all 27 essential vitamins and minerals. I'm loving the Black Edition powder for breakfast. 40 grams of protein with flavors like chocolate or vanilla. That is amazing. Best part, it costs as low as around $2.65 with the powder per meal. So are you ready to simplify your routine? Use my link in the description or the QR code on the screen and get a special discount using my code only, VETTED20. That's VETTED 20. Trust me, once you try it, there's no going back. Fuel for real life. Let's go back in time to just a few days ago when I released a video of an interview with Michael Ian Black, the comedian and actor, where he spoke about being invited into a signal track group, okay, and being told about an object headed for Earth that was planet-sized that would arrive in our solar system in 2027, and how he was suspicious of it. But that's where we need to start with the story, because this is how this all sort of came about, of me wanting to do this breakdown. So take a look at this. If you don't mind, I'd like to talk about that. Like, they told you an object was coming for Earth and even showed you a picture, and I just find that fascinating.
So I became friendly with somebody in the UFO community, and that person invited me into a small signal chat. Literally just three of us, but we were trading information on what we were hearing, blah, 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 blah. And so over the course of 18 months or so, this story begins to emerge from the person who invited me in, that there is an object, it's planet-sized, it's coming from out of our solar system into our solar system. It is decelerating. It has been decelerating for a couple of years, I think, at that point. And it's expected to enter our solar system around 2027. It is intelligently controlled. And when I asked how large it is, I was told massive, possibly even planet-sized. Later, I think maybe a month or two later, I was shown a photograph of this object. It looked like an astronomical image. It was taken from a distance. The thing was like this. It was gray. It was round. It could have been anything, but I was told this is the thing. Now, I was also told, please don't talk about this. This is huge. This is, when people are going to panic, blah, 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 blah. And of course, me being, some jerk off on cable TV, I'm like, what? And I was dubious because as soon as I heard planet-sized, I was like, wait, that doesn't make any sense to me at all, because it seems to me if you have planet-sized object entering your solar system, like other planets are going to feel that. Like we're going to see that. It's going to show up. Then again, just because something's planet-sized doesn't mean it has planet-sized mass. So I don't know. That being said, when Corbell released his video of saying there's a lie coming, and the lie is that there's an object approaching Earth and it'll be here in 2027. I was like, not that I believed it to begin with, but I was neither rejecting nor accepting it as a premise. I was like, all right, that's another data point. It's a huge data point, and it would be fucking freaky if it were true, but I'm definitely not believing this narrative at that point. But all of that to say, I still feel protective of the person who invited me into the signal chat. And I feel protective of the person who gave that person their information, not because I'm afraid of any consequences, but just because I don't feel right about betraying trusts. And I was, it never came out, okay, now you can say it. So I don't want to, I just don't feel right about betraying the trust of people who trusted me.
Now, at this point, you're probably wondering, who is that person, right? Who invited him into this signal chat group? And where is this coming from, right? Because it's probably somebody you and I both know. And I think I have a clue, and we'll explore that later in the video. But I can, to some extent, understand where Michael's coming from. So, like this person that told you that, I totally respect that, the trust thing. I'd probably do the same thing, to be honest with you. You felt they were reliable at first, right? That's why you joined.
I thought the person who invited me in, I believed to be sincere. I believed that person believed the information they were given. And they had no reason not to believe it. I think subsequently, my original contact has come to distrust the person who brought them in a little bit, or maybe a lot, I don't know. But again, it's just like, I don't want to be involved like you in this hall of mirrors. It doesn't get me any closer to my objective, which is to understand what the hell is going on. And I don't think it serves the community at large.
Now, putting aside who Michael was invited into this group by, to me, the bigger question is, why is this lie being told? What's the purpose? Which brings us back to, brings me back to something we were talking about earlier, right? When you join that signal chat and they give you this story of, there's a big object coming towards Earth, and, it's coming in 2027 and all this stuff. And, it's like, what's that meant to do? like to activate us in some
That's the
way, and
question,
like,
right? Like,
you know what
what's
I
the
mean?
point of
Yeah.
that?
What's the
And
point
and
of
it's
that?
and it speaks to, another mystery, which is a much more sort of grubby mystery about what all is going on in disclosure world. Like, what is that all about? What is the point of launching a psyop on the American people, setting aside the legality of it?
Yeah.
But it does feel like there's a lot of people running around ufology behaving as useful idiots. And I don't
Yeah.
understand why. I really don't.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me. And I think I was in a position where I easily could have become a useful idiot. And maybe I am, and I'm just unwitting right now, even having this conversation. Maybe I'm being somebody's useful idiot. I don't know.
Sure.
But in the field
Sure.
of ufology itself, it seems like we're just rife with it, and it's a
Yeah.
mystery. That is a mystery
I
because
agree.
I don't
It is a
understand the
mystery.
objective. I really don't.
I don't either. Trust me. It's like it's confounding, but it's like, you know, it's using a message needs to get out and a narrative needs to get created. You know, I just don't know what it's for. Is it a psyop to convince us there isn't any crashed UFOs or bodies that we have? And it's actually just advanced tech that we've created. So we're trying to hide it through UFOs, or there is actually real craft and bodies, but we're being psyop to create a bigger haystack. So we don't know which is the real story, right? We don't know which event actually happened, which bodies we really have, because that would be the best way to hide it, is amongst other fake, things. So I get confused, and clearly when you have, you know, genuine people who are interested in this topic coming into it, they're easily susceptible to, hey, here's something no one knows that could affect all of humanity. Who isn't enticed by that, right? It's like, oh shit, I'm privy to some crazy stuff. I really want to know what's going on, and people take advantage of that. But the bigger question is, why? Is it just a personal thing, right? I'm trying to grow my own personal brand, and I can sell a documentary and a book and my ego, or there is this actual cover up of what's going on. It is just like this cloak and dagger web of craziness that's impossible to try to figure out, I think. All right. So now that we've got that out of the way and established that there has been people, insiders within the UFO community, who have reached out to certain people, brought them into groups, and explained this threat to them, that an object is headed for Earth in 2027. Right now, there's been new people that have come out of the woodworks ever since my clip of, my interview with Michael Ian Black went kind of semi-viral within the UFO community. Well, it definitely went viral within the UFO community, but I've seen it in some other places outside of it, to be honest with you, because this date keeps coming up and this story keeps coming up. Right now, someone new that I hadn't knew about this came forward in a recent X Space to talk about that they had also been told about this 2027 alien threat rumor. His name is Timothy Alberino. Take a listen.
I thank you for the question. I think you're referring to, Three Eye Atlas. I'm not sure anybody knows what the heck that thing really was. I think it's still very possible that it was artificial. I don't know. It could have been commentary. Not sure. But I have heard rumors. I've heard rumors behind the scenes that something is coming. It's 100% artificial. It is massive, and it's supposed to arrive sometime around the year 2027. I didn't hear this, by the way, from Jeremy Corbell. I don't know who he's heard that from. I don't know if it's the same people. I heard this from other people. And I can tell you that there are insiders who are taking this very seriously. So from what I can tell, it's something that was detected either by Space Force or some element of the intelligence community or NASA. And it's people are alarmed. It's not the Three Eye Atlas thing. The people I've asked certain people about Three Eye Atlas, and it's kind of like, well, we don't know what that is, but what's coming behind it, that's the real problem. So I don't know what that means. I don't really have any more insight, but it does appear that there's at least rumors circulating behind the scenes that something artificial, large, is on its way. And it's allegedly supposed to arrive around the year 2027. And, I know that Mr. Corbell in that one interview said that, it was going to be a lie. We were going to be told there's an alien spacecraft and it's going to be a lie. I don't know anything about that. I don't know. Maybe he's right. Maybe he's, he could very well be right about it being a lie. I don't know. I'm just sort of passing on to you guys what I've been hearing behind the scenes.
I appreciate you speaking on that, Tim. There are people currently on the stage, in addition to you, who've also heard from people, whether it's a PSYOP or not, people high up who take this very seriously, with the exact same dates, planet size, roughly moon sized. And what we hear is that even the military or Space Force, they also, it's not like they were sent some Hallmark card and said, hey, don't worry, we come in peace. The inference, if the story is true, is that if you're coming with that size of a ship, it's probably not benevolent unless it comes with a giant white flag in advance. I'm guessing you heard a similar story.
Yeah, that's the general inference that it's suspected to be hostile. Now, is this just a big gigantic PSYOP? I don't know. I mean, I don't have enough information to know, exactly anything about it, really. So nobody really does. So, well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. And there's a good chance nothing at all will happen, and that this is just a baseless rumor. So we'll see. I mean, we're only a year away.
Now, first off, can we just say that guy looks exactly like Johnny Drama from Entourage? Let's be real, okay? I literally thought that was a picture of him. But regardless, very interesting, right? More people coming out and saying that they've heard about this and that insiders are taking it seriously. It's not Three Eye Atlas, but what's behind it, right? It's always so dramatic, all right? And they always leave it at, well, I don't know if it's true. It could be fake, but hey, insiders are taking it seriously. Like, well, which is it? Right? I'm just telling you what I've been told. And that's all this becomes, is people saying what they've been told. I don't know what to make of it, but all I know is that there's a lot of people in this community who have been connected to this story. And that's what we're going to be breaking down, essentially. And if you remember, Jeremy Corbell, not too long ago, revealed that we would be told a lie, that a craft was headed for Earth, and the year was 2027.
All indications, like all of them, is that lie is going to be that there is a craft slowly making its way to us here on Earth. And that is the lie they're going to want you to believe. It's nuanced, how they explain that, the nature of that threat. But that 100% is the lie you are going to be told. You even got a date. People been whispering a date for a long time now. I know where that lie comes from. I know specifically what document from the 70s initiated the idea of that lie. A classified document. That is the lie you will be told. You're going to be told that there is a craft on its way to Earth. That's the lie. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I sent you 2 texts today with a year. Not from me. Nope. I'm not going to propagate that lie.
And I can't tell you how happy I am that Jeremy said that, right? I've brought that up in multiple videos, and I have credited Jeremy with standing up and going against the grain, right? because he is the only one saying that, essentially, besides one other person, and we'll get to that in a moment, who is saying that this is a lie. This is a lie we'll be told. And guess what? There are a sea of people telling this lie, trying to convince people behind the scenes, and now it's come out into the open. Again, zero evidence and zero proof that we're supposed to believe it. The foundation that it should have validity is all based on insiders are taking it seriously. That's not enough. And that sounds like absolute BS. It's like, why? That's the biggest question I want to know. Why is this lie being told? And I have some theories, and we'll explore it as we go through. But like I said, Jeremy Corbell isn't the only one to sound the whistle on this, that this is a lie. There's someone else who's a very controversial figure in this community who has said the same thing. His name is Stephen Greer.
So what's the agenda here? It's the agenda we exposed 30 some years ago, and that Carol Rosin said that Werner von Braun, who invented the rocket for Adolf Hitler, warned us of, and that they were going to try to create a specter of a threat from outer space. And the only way to do that is to falsely create evidence, or evidence that exists that the CIA and other operations have created, and then label it alien when it isn't. So they labeled the Cash Landrum thing alien when it was human error. They label many of the abductions as alien when it's been staged by covert programs. They label mutilations alien mutilations, and they're not. We know who's doing it. We know how they're doing it. It has nothing to do with NHI, extraterrestrial aliens.
Which is interesting because he says they create fake evidence, right? And you may be saying, oh, Dr. Stephen Greer is incredible, or you may be thinking he is credible. I don't know. But all I know is that he is one of a few people who is saying this is a lie. Now, he thinks there's a lot of lies, different abductions, like he said, all kinds of different things that are actually just humans, not, craft flying around, right? But he clearly believes in aliens. But the evidence that was created, and Jeremy hinted at it in his clip, right, where he says there is a classified document this is all based off of.
I know specifically what document from the 70s initiated the idea of that lie. A classified document.
But what's very interesting about this story, because you may be thinking, oh, this must be recent data that they're going off of. Well, if we look back in time, they've been talking about an object heading for Earth for quite a long time. Let me introduce you to Carla Turner. She's a PhD who wrote a book called Into the Fringe. And in that book, there's an excerpt that says this, and it's from the 1990s. Later that same day, I heard about a disturbing rumor that was making its way through the UFO community. With all the speed of a highly contagious virus, such rumors abounded in the ufological community. This one held that a recent public speaker had supposedly confided to a MUFON member that the Air Force was greatly concerned about a large unidentified object in space, apparently heading for Earth. When others had tried to track down the source of this rumor, the trail finally led back to some unnamed and retired Air Force officer who kept in contact with his friends still in the service. They had told him that the large object was emanating a lot of radiation and was following an unusual trajectory, which seemed to show intelligent control. That's interesting, right? Again, this goes back to the 90s. They've been inserting this rumor into the UFO community for decades. And they've tried it before, and they're trying it again because it probably worked before, right? It activates people. When you think the end of the world is coming or an alien invasion, you'll pretty much do anything that person asks, right? It's like, well, the world's, you'll fight for disclosure. You'll do anything. Despicable, vile things, right? And we've seen that in the UFO community. And the same people who believe in this have done some of these vile things, right? Now, it doesn't stop there, because there's another story from Coast to Coast back in the 90s. Shout out Grider on X for pointing this out and putting a little clip together where they also talked about an object headed for Earth.
In 2012, I'll give you the scientific facts and I'll give you my opinion. In 2012, there is a meteor which is going to graze the outer edge of the atmosphere. You can call most astronomers and talk to them about it. They're afraid that this meteor is going to, when it grazes the outer atmosphere, actually explode. And if it does that, then you have a whole group of smaller chunks or meteorites that rain down upon the planet. In specifically the prophecies within the pyramid, it does talk about a river of fire occurring in 2012 specifically, that everybody thinks that they've survived holding on to their own ways and their own technology, get literally knocked into the pit or the abyss by this river of fire. The only two meteor strikes that I've seen from a perspective of actually traveling to the future and trying to ask them about their history is that there is a meteor strike sometime in the year 2027, and it's way up. It's near Greenland somewhere. I mean, it's south of Greenland, and this meteor that actually explodes somewhere around late 2012, early 2013, that creates this shower of rocks all across a big chunk of the world.
Now, there's a lot of interesting things in that clip. Greenland, 2027, 2012, meteorite shower, the apocalypse, essentially. So let's break this down. That's from 1997, someone predicting the 2012, right? There was that whole Mayan calendar thing and all of that stuff. And of course, nothing happened, right? But it is interesting to hear 2027 in Greenland, right? I mean, holy cow. We've definitely covered that. Trump wanting to get Greenland. People said there's crashed UFOs. There's a lot of UFO activity there. So those are interesting connections. But again, people have been talking about this for decades. Something coming we need to be worried about, right? And nothing happened in 2012. Nothing's going to happen in 2027. But I will admit that Greenland is a coincidence. An interesting one. Now, not too long ago, someone else came out that I included in a video previously. It's in that playlist. Over a year ago, and they came out on Twitter and talked about this 2027 event as well. All right, so here's a clip from an old vetted video where I read it out. And it's the Rafios Network. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce this, but let's read. So we reached out to a figure who recently testified. We invited them to a high-level signal group we have going with about 6 people so far. The goal of this group is to figure out how to affect the most change in the disclosure process and how to speed it up. We have until 2027, apparently, and officials are still lying to us about what's coming. 2026, all hell is going to break loose. They don't want everyone knowing this information, but it's a crime against humanity. We have a right to know about something that affects the futures of every single human being. We are talking a mass extinction event. All the people in the group but me possess clearance. That's the only thing I will reveal about the members. I extended an invitation to the group to this individual. Months ago, they sent me out of the blue an invite to a social media website to my email address. I'm guessing that's how they establish comms. Anyways, they've put me in a position. Do I make a post documenting who they are and how they are holding up the process by having double standards? They didn't even respond to the invitation, just blocked me. Should we release the message and identity? Yes. Yes, they should. And guess what? They never did. But this sounds like the exact same thing that happened to Michael Ian Black. Again, this happens to a lot of people. And there's more evidence in this video that this happened to people. More people, right? This exact same scenario. And the double standard he's talking about is they were pushing for transparency and being less than transparent, right? They want disclosure, yet they don't disclose. Right? I've always said the real gatekeepers are the UFO personalities that keep all these sources and hidden secrets and this and that and all that stuff. They're gatekeeping just like the people they say are gatekeeping the knowledge, right? There's gatekeeping at every level, essentially. Now, it doesn't stop here. The story continues because not too long ago in my playlist, you'll find this video. I found the source of a lot of these 2027 rumors, but as I've come to realize, they're not the only person that's been the source, but they are one of the main sources where this 2027 rumor came about. And it's interesting, right? Now, again, you'll find the full video in the playlist down below, but his name is John Ramirez, and he's an ex-CIA officer. And here's a clip to help prove my point.
And in many ways, I think the word got out within the government that they're showing up in 2027, and we better be prepared. And if not, there's going to be a lot of explaining to do.
Have you gotten a phone call after speaking?
Yes.
You have?
Well, not a phone call. I would say I got a text message.
Okay, that said, chill out?
No. The text message said that I got several phone calls from CIA concerning what you said about 2027.
2027. They're coming in 2027. That's what the government's talking about, right? And then he says he got a text message and then says he got several phone calls. Well, which is it, John? But anyway, there's more proof. Take a look at this.
What can you tell us about 2027? And thank you for your courage to discuss the truth.
All right. You're welcome. I will say this. There were some American government officials. They're assisting in the disclosure process behind the scenes. Back in the September of 2022, they invited me to meet them in Washington, D.C. And these officials requested anonymity, which I will honor. I can say this: they were not CIA officers. So during the course of the meeting, which was held in a SCIF, it's a sensitive compartmented information facility, SCIF. One of the officials mentioned, I didn't mention, one of the officials mentioned that the year 2027 emerged in the various social media venues. And I was asked about my knowledge of that year. And I said, yep, I acknowledged that, yeah, it seems to loom large within the channeler community, spiritual consciousness communities. They're the ones talking about 2027. And I suggested that why don't you research what Anjali Schultz and Chris Bledsoe have stated about these future years. And keep in mind, this is 2022, so 2027 was 5 years away. And I was pressed for my own personal opinion. And I reiterated, I defer to the channelers. I don't know what's going to happen in 2027. The channelers seem to be talking about it. I did say that I referenced Lou Elizondo, told him that in 2022, that same year that I talked to these folks in the SCIF, stated that we should engage in a hobby for 5 years and all will come out by then. So I gave that out. And 5 years from 2022 is 2027. So maybe it's some kind of disclosure timetable. But when they further pressed me for my personal opinion, and I said, I personally hope that these NHI beings might make their presence known by then, that they control disclosure, not humans. They can show up anytime they want to. They chosen not to, but suppose they do show up in 2027, then it behooves the American government to start disclosing everything it knows about NHI and their technologies now. Let's use these 5 years to start moving forward. Otherwise, if you don't disclose anything and they show up on their own accord, that's an uncontrolled, unpredictable shock to the system, and that would be disastrous. That's the story behind 2027. I never said that we're being invaded by ETs in 2027. They're going to land in 2027. A lot of bullshit came out in social media by these social media influencers, but that was completely untrue. It was just a discussion about what I conveyed from the channelers, quoting Lou Elizondo, and my personal hope that the government would start disclosing before they show up on their own. And that's 2027.
Interesting. He literally said in that first clip that the word got out within the government that they were showing up in 2027. Right? So he's just trying to backtrack and not take control. You know, it's all a loop, right? It's all a loop. And then he just puts it on the channelers. Chris Bledsoe, Anjali, some woman named Anjali. I guess alien channelers are the ones that have been saying. He's saying they're the ones responsible. But he's also talking about within the government. Like, you think the CIA is having meetings about what alien channelers are saying? It's not happening. Okay? This is so ridiculous. And he's mad that people are pointing the finger at him, yet he's out propagating it. Again, just another example of people passing the buck, but still wanting to use the buck, essentially. I don't know if that makes sense. And what's interesting is that John Ramirez brings up Lou Elizondo, right? As someone who stated in 2022, hey, in 5 years, it'll all be revealed. Get a hobby, which is 2027, right? And Lou Elizondo's name keeps coming up over and over again when you talk about the 2027 alien threat rumor. So let's break down Lou Elizondo and see how connected he is to this 2027 alien threat rumor. Here's a clip from his most recent interview with Glenn Beck, where he's asked about 2027. And listen to what he says.
You're not the only one that said this. 2027 keeps coming up, and you just said later this year or in 2027. Why is 2027 the year that everybody keeps throwing around? Because it doesn't seem random to me.
Well,
Everybody seems to be saying
heard,
2027.
Yeah, I've heard 2027. I also heard 2036. The capacity in which I heard it, I'd rather not get into. I heard it when I was working with U.S. Space Force, but it was to me it seemed more anecdotal. So I'm probably not best suited to answer that time wise, simply because I didn't come up with that time frame. Okay. But I heard that as well, and certainly something we need to pay attention to.
Okay, interesting. So he's saying it's anecdotal. It's something we need to pay attention to, right? And he gives out another date in the 2030s, right? And he says, like you, Glenn, I've heard that. Well, it's not really the same thing now, is it? Right? Glenn is saying he heard it through the grapevine. Lou is saying he heard it from Space Force, right? When he worked at Space Force. What are we talking about here, right? And again, Lou's been dropping clues, Lou like crazy about this. And what's also interesting is later in that same Glenn Beck interview, he says this.
So do you remember having that conversation where you said the clock is ticking?
I do. I remember that, Glenn. I sure do.
So what did you mean by that?
Well, look, in the world of national security, the clock is always ticking.
The clock is ticking. Let's pin that phrase because it's going to come up later. And Lou's intentions and motivations within the UFO community has long been criticized, and people have wondered, what is he really doing in ufology? So let's take a closer look. Here's other comments that Lou has made in the past about an incoming event, an imminent event, right? Like his book, 2027, all of that. Take a listen.
I don't know if it's something coming or a natural disaster. You hear of something big coming down the pike. Have you heard of these claims? And if so, do you have any idea what it may be?
Yes, I've heard of them. Yes, I'm aware of them, and I'm not able to have that conversation.
So what's interesting is, why can't he talk about it? Talked about it on Glenn Beck. He's going to talk about another clip, but in here, right, he was very coy. Oh, I can't talk about that. I've heard about it. I know about it, but I can't talk about it. Right? And then little by little, he can start talking about it. What? Oh, there's more.
To the extent you can talk about what might be imminent, what is imminent?
Time is not a luxury that we can afford. The time has come. We need to start having the conversation collectively. We should have had it a while ago, but we really need to start having the conversation.
Time is not a luxury. The clock is ticking. I can't talk about it. Right? Interesting. What's also interesting is this clip from the Julian Dory podcast.
You're building a bunker out there in Wyoming?
The rule to Fight Club is you never talk about Fight Club. Right? So if you're building a bunker, you don't tell people, because then everybody knows where to go when everything goes south.
Yeah, building bunkers. So something's imminent. The clock is ticking. Time is not a luxury. He's building a bunker. Or at least he's saying he is. And he's saying, wait 5 years, right? Back in 2022, about 2027. And people keep connecting Lou Elizondo to this 2027 thing, right? He knows about it. Heard it from Space Force, right? And 2035 or 2036, whatever he said. And he can't talk about it, but yet he seems to keep talking about it.
I mean, I'm going to have to ask 2027.
No, I don't know why people keep saying 2027.
Listen.
People are like, oh, Lou said 2027. No, I never said 2027. Stop,
Okay.
guys. I never said that. You know what happens is people in the internet have got way too much time on their hands. They will clip together interviews I have to create a false narrative.
Okay, so let me know.
Yeah, Lou. Why do people keep saying 2027? You've never said 2027. Oh, wait. You did.
Yeah, I've heard 2027. I also heard 2036.
See, so what are you talking about, Lou? Right now, that Area 52 interview was recorded before the Glenn Beck interview, right? But the reason he's asked about 2027 earlier, and he said he knows about it. He's heard about it, right? So why is it so crazy that Chris Ramsey asked him? And the reason people are saying 2027 is because you've been saying it, Lou, and you've said it. And allegedly, you've been saying it behind the scenes, right? So it's not so crazy. But to then gaslight and say people like me, right, are putting together clips and making it seem like I just show clips. They speak for themselves. Those are your words, not mine, right? So you have been saying 2027. You said it after this interview as well on Area 52. And there's more.
Then what is it? Is it, Bledsoe has a hard date, by the way. He says Easter Sunday, 2026 is like his date.
And funny enough, Chris Bledsoe has changed his April 2026 prediction to the fall of 2026. It could be September, it could be October. It could move to 2027 now, right? Very interesting about predictions, right?
I've heard people say 2025 is when we begin this, whatever. And like it's obviously the goalpost is going to shift depending on what's been said. Recently, Jeremy Corbell in his special, in his 3-part special, at the end of it said that the government was intending on having some mass sighting or like a giant mothership come in and that, this is going to happen. And then 2027's been thrown around. Can you, for everyone's sanity,
yeah, sure,
shed a little bit of light on this just so we can stop being paranoid, or we can start, being paranoid?
Let me see if I can thread the needle on this.
Sure. Take your time.
I know a lot of people, this is nothing new. There's entire religions that plan for doomsday, right? The end of the world's coming. Then you have, then it's Y2K, and then, it's the end of the Aztec calendar, right? And,
Huh. Interesting. Yeah. Very interesting, Lou. Right? Yeah. So crazy that people talk like that. While you talk like that, right? I mean, Lou is the most gaslighting mother trucker in the UFO community. I swear to God. And I have to believe that Chris Ramsey was just like, you're totally full of shit while he's sitting across from him. There's no way he wasn't thinking that in his head, and especially afterwards. But I'm not here to speak for Chris. Let's let Lou answer this a little bit more.
There is some speculation, and I won't say specifics, that there may be something in later on. But the problem is I wouldn't go to the bank with it. And what the specifics are, because it's first of all, it's hearsay. And it's also yes, there was an official effort by some people in the government to actually look at this data, and there were some products produced. That's a fact. I won't go into more detail than that, but it wasn't 2027.
Okay.
And it was based upon certain observations. And again, I'm very careful because what I don't want to do is people are going to take this, they're going to hang on to these words and say, Lou said something's coming. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that there were some people who were anticipating something happening. And it was officially considered by some people based upon certain things, and a product was written. Anything beyond that, I don't want to discuss, because I think what happens is people take that and they take it to the bank.
Sure.
And that's very dangerous.
You don't want to give any credence to something that could be untrue.
Right. I mean, look, anything can happen, right? A tornado could hit your studio in 10 minutes from now. It could. It probably won't, but it could, right? So we have to be very careful. There's no such thing as absolutes.
But it's when you say something was observed that people's ears tend to perk up.
Yeah. I mean, I can't go into more detail than that, because first of all, I didn't collect the data. I wasn't part of that effort. And thirdly, that's not really for me to discuss. But I don't think people need to be, Panic at the Disco and, oh my God, we've been down this road many times before. Let's stop speculating. Let's stick to what we know. And if it turns out that there's a revelation based upon of us all working together on this, and fine, maybe it is what it is. But we need to make sure we don't do ourselves the injustice by predicting and predicating things. I think that's a dangerous move. And I think unless the government comes out and says something, hey, you need to pay attention to this, then we probably should focus on other things.
Gaslighting 101, right? The clock is ticking. Time is of the essence, or whatever he said, right? I can't talk about this imminent. He literally named his book Imminent, right? Again, they've observed an object. A product was produced. I can't say any more than that, right? It's a joke. It's a joke. It pains me that people fall for this, right? Do whatever you want. Believe whatever you want. Think whatever you want. Invest time, money, energy, effort into whatever you want, right? But good Lord, right? This guy, it's kind of mind-blowing, right? And he just keeps pulling the thread further and further. Hey, don't get so crazy, okay? We shouldn't overreact. Meanwhile, he pushes you to overreact. Just like Chris says, well, then when you say an object's coming, what are people supposed to say, right? Like, but he's not really saying that, but he is saying that. And this is just what's public, right? Because there's more things that have come out about Lou Elizondo that allegedly have happened behind the scenes. So let's get into that.
I was offered a job in 2019 by the United States Space Force, where Lou Elizondo worked, to work with him in disinformation. And I said, not no, but hell no. I'll never do that again.
Last night on A Space, I told a story about Lou Elizondo asking me to work for Space Force within the Counterintelligence Office. I declined his offer. At no time did I make a statement that Lou wanted me to work as a disinformation agent for Space Force against the public. That is a complete lie. Those who posted that video and those who made that AI of me are now blocked by me.
So who you heard from was Rick Doty, who's the star of a great documentary called Mirage Men. And Rick has readily admitted he was a disinformation agent, that he put disinformation into the UFO community, paid people to do it. Nobody really trusts the guy, to be honest with you. The whole Paul Benowitz situation, there's Bill Moore, there's all kinds of things, right? So it is interesting to hear Rick Doty say this. He says he was called by Lou Elizondo very recently, right, to join Space Force, where Lou Elizondo works in Colorado Springs, to be a disinformation agent again, right? And then when that clip went viral, Rick Doty tried to come out and say that was AI. I didn't say that. That was AI. Wait, what? It was a live stream, right? So clearly someone talked to him, right? Now, let's listen to that clip again without the music.
I was offered a job in 2019 by the United States Space Force, where Lou Elizondo worked, to work with him in disinformation. And I said, not no, but hell no. I'll never do that again.
Did Lou bend the knee?
Worked for him. I don't know what he did. You'd have to ask Lou.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds just like Rick Doty saying exactly what he just said, right? That Lou Elizondo asked him to be a disinformation agent with him for the Space Force. And then again, this is recent, right? And then Rick saying, well, this AI. Well, that's interesting because in an X space, he pretty much admitted it later on as well. So what is going on?
All right, on to my question. Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
What were you were talking about and referencing? Maybe shed some context on what was talked about with Elizondo, with Space Force, all that.
Richard Doty claims that Space Force offered to work in disinformation with Lou Elizondo. Care to comment, Mr. Doty?
Yes. In fact, a few years ago, I spoke with Lou. He got a hold of me. This is when he began working for Space Force. And he asked me if I wanted a job. I said, doing what? And I knew of him, but I didn't know exactly what he was doing at that time. And he said, I'm working for U.S. Space Force in their counterintelligence office. And I have a guy up here, and he gave me the name of the person who I used to work with a long time ago. And he said, I would just wonder if you'd be interested to come up here to Colorado Springs and work with us. And I said, well, you know what? I'm not really interested in doing that anymore. I got out of it a long time ago, and I appreciate your offer. And he said, well, think about it and then get back with me. Well, I never got back with him. One of his colleagues contacted me, who actually sent me an email saying, Lou's still waiting for your response. And in that email, I said, no, I thank you very much for the offer, but I declined. I'm not going to be, I don't want to go back to work for the government. So I knew at that time, Lou was still in the government, working for Space Force. He actually, and I learned this later, he actually started, I could remember now, the Space Force is a new branch of the government. He started a counterintelligence office within the Space Force. And then somehow, and I don't know how, you'd have to ask Lou or somebody else, his job was terminated, and then he moved on just to the private sector. Now, he's made statements, I saw his statements, that he still works, once in intelligence, you're always in intelligence, and I don't necessarily agree with that. But that's why I always tell people, I mean, Lou is a nice guy. He's a very friendly person, but you got to be careful what you tell him and what you do when he asks you to do something. So I just give that advice to people. And, if you want to believe him and do whatever he wants, that's your business. But yeah, if he's still working somehow for counterintelligence, whether within Pentagon or maybe within a contractor, because contractors, I know Lockheed has their own intelligence division, as does Raytheon. So you just got to be careful. And that's what I know about Lou and his connection still within counterintelligence.
So just to confirm, Mr. Doty, you are going on the record and saying Lou Elizondo is a disinformation agent?
No, I'm going to say, I'll say there's a possibility that he could still be working in a counterintelligence. I don't use the word disinformation. In fact, that's not the way it's handled within the government. It's deception operations, we call them. But there's a possibility that he still is.
And you may be thinking, well, maybe Rick Doty is just doing more disinformation. This is just to, give Lou a bad name. This never happened. That's interesting because on a show called Disclosure Tonight, Rick Doty was a permanent guest on that show. And guess who was good friends with everyone on that show? Lou Elizondo, right? Lou Elizondo and Rick Doty have been connected for years, right? Through this show. Very interesting, right? Just very interesting. What's also interesting is someone else from that show, Disclosure Tonight. But we'll get to that in a moment. Because people may try to say, oh, Lou never worked for Space Force, right? Even though he already said it in a clip that I show, but there were people saying Lou never worked for Space Force. Okay. Oh, yeah? Well, why did he say this?
And I had it easy. A lot of people say, oh, it was horrible what you went through. And yeah, you know what? It wasn't fun. But there's a lot of people like Dave Grush who had to go through a lot worse than I did as far as repercussions. Within 24 hours, they tried to bury his career. And, love him or hate him, irrelevant. He is a patriot. And I worked with him at U.S. Space Force. I wasn't allowed to say where, but at this point, I don't care anymore because people are like, oh, well, he didn't really. Yes, he did. We worked in his SAP-F facility, a skiff together, and our only job was UAP. And no one knows that. And I'll tell you right here and right now, for the first time, that's exactly what we were working on, and Space Force was paying us to do it. And this was after ATIP. So when people are saying, oh, well, there wasn't anything to see here, that's not true. And in fact, some of the most compelling data that we have right now in the U.S. government was a result of our time at Space Force, not at ATIP, because we had better technology, more capabilities, more persistence. I'm hopeful that story will be told sometime because people like Dave, I hate talking about myself. I just...
And then he also said this.
This is a dangerous battle you're fighting, Lou. There are forces, powerful forces, that don't want this story told.
Oh, yeah. And they'll go to great lengths to keep it a secret. Look what happened to poor Dave. I worked with Dave at Space Force. I don't know if that's public knowledge, but I'll say it. What the hell? He and I were working the UAP topic for Space Force for a very good man, a senior guy, very senior guy, by the way. And this was all in the open. So, this was acknowledged at the time.
And what's interesting is both those clips are from 2024, right? Now, one of them was a never released clip, and it came out in 2025 through an interview he had for 2024. But he had already said in December of 2024 that he had worked for Space Force. And he tried to make those guys seem like, never talked about this before. It's the first time I'm saying it. Really? Because I found this article from 2022 from the Liberation Times. Pentagon admits whistleblowers claim that he continues to work for U.S. Space Force on classified topics. August 23rd, 2022. Pentagon spokesperson Susan Goh has told Liberation Times that Lou Elizondo, former director of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, ATIP, is advising the U.S. Space Force on classified topics. Goh told Liberation Times the following. Mr. Elizondo provides technical advice on a variety of classified topics for the U.S. Space Force. And Lou had tweeted out after that, thank God that they're responding, and confirming it. It was public knowledge, right? Now, this is before I came into the UFO community, so I'd never heard of this. So when I heard Lou talk about Space Force, I thought it was brand new. And that's kind of what they rely on, you to be unaware of other things, right? But Lou clearly knew that. And then he tries to go out and say, I've never talked about this before. You may be saying, well, he didn't talk about working with David Grush with UAP activity. That's not true. Because in that same Liberation Times article, Christopher Sharp, who wrote that article, is confirming in the article that he's working for UAP stuff for Space Force. Again, and don't forget, UAP just means unidentified anomalous phenomena. Doesn't mean aliens, right? They're trying to identify things in the sky. And that's kind of the thing, it's just like, what the hell is going on, man? Because it makes you wonder why is Lou Elizondo in the UFO community at all?
And we're already aware that there are people who are almost certainly connected to the intelligence community who are involved in disinformation, active disinformation.
I'm a counterterrorism and counterespionage guy. I do counterintelligence, counterinsurgencies. That's what I do. And it just so happens that in 2008, I was asked to apply those same skill sets into the UFO community.
It's fascinating to see a coordinated public campaign, and I believe it's being run from sections of the defense intelligence community.
I do counterintelligence, counterinsurgencies. That's what I do.
Executive Order 12333, it forbids the running of intelligence operations against the American public.
I was asked to apply those same skill sets into the UFO community.
But perhaps no one has played a bigger role than a muscle-bound man with tattoos, a soul patch, and one hell of a story to tell.
So, I asked the question, is Lou Elizondo just here to sort of inject misinformation and disinformation into the UFO community for the government, which against the American people, right? Psychological warfare against the American people. He clearly admits that he's using the same skills that he had within the government, counterintelligence, in the UFO community. Now, why would we need counterintelligence? Huh? All very strange. But it doesn't stop there, y'all. I told you, this was a deep dive breakdown.
You know, when I was at one meeting where Don Jr. was there with another guy, and he was talking about how, he got so much information from Luis Elizondo, who of course, as everybody knows now, is a master disinformation counterintelligence guy. And I said, okay, that's a red flag problem right there, right?
And Stephen Greer was right. Lou Elizondo did go on Don Jr.'s show, triggered right before Donald Trump was inaugurated, the same weekend that Jake Barber came out with Skywatcher. That all happened the same weekend of January 20th, 2025. And clearly, he tried to build a relationship with Don Jr., and I guess Stephen Greer is trying to break that up. Now, say what you want about Stephen Greer, and I've said a lot. I think he's right about one thing, and that's about Luis Elizondo, right? Because, in my opinion, because you got to be careful with Lou's lawyers. They'll come out and threaten you, sue you, this, that, libel, defamation, all kinds of things. And guess who's the only UFO personality that exists that happens from? Lou Elizondo. No one else has lawyers going around suing everybody and threatening to sue people, right? Isn't that strange? Very strange. And I'm sure they might try to come after me for this video. I know Lou's sycophant fans will. They'll attack this video, they'll report it, they'll come after me, they'll spread misinformation about me, they'll attack. And guess what? I don't care. Bring it. Now, I'm not done. Let's keep going. Now, this next clip is a little long, but it's well worth hearing. This is a leaked audio of someone named Mike Disclosure. Now he's known as Mikey D, because you see, Mike Disclosure did some very bad things, and he had to leave Twitter, leave a show called Disclosure Tonight, which I brought up earlier. And on a personal note, Mike Disclosure doxed me years ago when I was a small channel. And him and the host of that show, Disclosure Tonight, bot swatted a live stream that I had one time. And they have spread misinformation and disinformation about me for a long time, right? Because I spoke out against Lou Elizondo. And initially I was just asking questions, but that's what happens in this UFO community, right? So I'm not a fan of this guy, but regardless, I'm still coming at this open-minded, because this leaked audio you're about to hear from Mike Disclosure, even though he's trying to change his name, Mikey D, because you see, he had doxed other people, and he apparently got a talking to, right? He's going to talk about a craft headed for Earth 2027 and another year in the 2030s that, guess who also mentioned the 2030s?
Yeah, I've heard 2027, and I also heard 2036.
Yeah, Lou Elizondo.
That could be coming for all of us down the road. It's a distinct possibility that I've heard from very credible sources. And I'm not talking about John Ramirez, because there's a clock ticking, and if we don't do it on our own, it might end up being done for us. Ramirez, Bledsoe, the different dates and years. My understanding from within the government, and this has not been publicly discussed, is that it's not a premonition or putting out a guess about what may or may not be coming. My understanding is that, hypothetically, if there is an agreement that's in place with an advanced civilization here on this earth with us. The reason that they have not wiped us out is because of an agreement that is in place. Simply, they are so technologically advanced, we would be no threat to them or able to prevent or stop them from removing us from the planet and doing whatever they wanted to do. The reason they have not is because there is some sort of an agreement that's in place that prevents that. What is the terms of the agreement as far as if we're so inferior and primitive to their technology, what is it from us that they would need that would be of value to them? If they're dealing with extracting biological material from the 8 billion souls on this planet, they would need control over the groups that are in control on this planet, namely our organized governments and the government structure. Because if there is activities like this going on, which occur in typical farms all around the world, and it turns out that our existence on this planet may be either a zoo or a farm, then there would have to be some understanding in place for things to go smoothly. Now, from what I've heard, the agreement, as any agreement, the terms of such over time can be violated. And let's say that the agreement that's been in place, we violated the terms on our side of the fence. As a result of that, the advanced civilization would be then enforcing the terms of the agreement by stating that you have this much time to correct your side of the bargain. If you fail to do so at this deadline, then they can either be hostile or they can make us aware that we are in fact not alone. And if that's the case and that becomes public knowledge, then we would have to accept the fact that we're not on the top of the food chain anymore. And that would be enough to send a message to regain control over our species here on this planet. And my understanding is the deadline that's in place for not shots being fired directly against us in a hostile manner, but a large presence that is publicly known and seen that would establish, without any type of hostile force or act, the realization that there might be a civilization that's in authority that's superior to ours that exists here on Earth with us. So we would then have to abide by that understanding and knowledge. So I believe that the deadline that was proposed, that I've heard about, is somewhere along the lines of the mid-2030s. Not 2024, not 2027, not 2029. It's very close to the mid-2030s. And now we have a long way to go from here to there, and roughly a little over a decade. But if the government doesn't disclose on its own the presence of the NHI here on this planet with us, I have a feeling, based on what the government is aware of, at one point they will do that. And then no government or organization will have control over that or them, or will be able to prevent and continue to hide the existence of an advanced species. That could be coming for all of us down the road. It's a distinct possibility that I've heard from very credible sources. And I'm not talking about John Ramirez. So, do I know for a fact that that's true? No. Do I know that it's a good possibility that it could be true? Yes. So we'll just have to wait and see from now until then what happens. But that could be part of what's pushing this information forward out to the public, because there's a clock ticking, and if we don't do it on our own, it might end up being done for us.
Wow. A lot to say there. It's not 2024. It's not 2027. It's not 2029. It's the 2030s. But before we get all of that about Mike Disclosure, or AKA Mikey D, as he's known now. I mean, what is he? 17-year-old, like Long Island dude, like what? Mikey D, he's on Jersey Shore now. His last comment, the clock is ticking. Who else said that recently?
So do you remember having that conversation where you said the clock is ticking?
I do. I remember that, Glenn. I sure do.
So what did you mean by that?
Yeah, Lou Elizondo. Now, we'll get into all the implications of that, everything that Mike talked about. But you may be wondering, well, how is Lou Elizondo connected to Mike Disclosure? Take a look at this.
Big shout out to Mike at Disclosure. Great having you guys on the team. Appreciate everything you do. God bless.
Now, you may be saying, Patrick, well, he said Mike at Disclosure, not Mike Disclosure. Okay, let's say that that's true. Well, that clip was played on Disclosure Tonight show that has Mike Disclosure as a co-host, right? Like, what are we talking about, right? And a leaked DM from Mike Disclosure got out, and it said this: Lou Elizondo, Ivan Handel, Thomas Fessler, and myself are in a social media civil war with those trolls for years now. Now, there's more to that story that's not about this video, but essentially there's Mike Disclosure DMing people saying him and other people are in a, social media war, right? And those people, right? Thomas Fessler is also the host of Disclosure Tonight. Ivan Handel is Lou Elizondo's lawyer, right? And himself and Lou Elizondo are all in this little group. So I wonder who Mike Disclosure is hearing all this stuff from, these insiders, right? I wonder who that is, right? And again, Disclosure Tonight's the same show that Rick Doty is going on all the time, right? I'm just saying, little unusual. And Thomas Fessler and Mike Disclosure are Lou Elizondo sycophants, man. They will come after you. They've come after me, right? And there's a lot more information about those guys that hasn't been released yet. And people are waiting to release it to try to they want to see what they'll do, right? So it's just very, very interesting. Now, again, for legal reasons, I'm just going to say allegedly, in my opinion, right? But I'll let the evidence speak for itself, and you can decide for yourself what you think. Is Lou Elizondo close with Mike Disclosure? Well, he shouted him out, right? And he goes on the same show that Mike Disclosure's on all the time. A small show, by the way, right? Which is fine, but just saying. Why go on that show? For years, right? Even Lou Elizondo's wife has called in to the show before. So seems like a family affair, right? And Mike Disclosure is telling people behind the scenes that insiders are telling him that there's an object coming in the mid-2030s. Who else brought up the 2030s? Yeah, Lou Elizondo. And he said he heard it from Space Force, but he also tries to distance himself from it, right? I'm just saying, it's all a little strange. But I'm not done. Let me introduce you to Kelly Chase. She is the co-host and producer of a show called Cosmosis. She had a podcast called The Rabbit Hole, and now she has that show, Cosmosis, which you can find on Apple TV, which I highly recommend. It's a really good show. Well, today she put out a long tweet, and I'm going to read it because I think it's absolutely appropriate for this. And you'll see why. Here's the thing about me. I can't always say what I want to say, but I don't lie. I've known that it was Lou and his proxies who have been spreading the 2026-2027 date for the approach of an alien spacecraft for over a year. I wasn't able to name names because I was given this information in confidence by people who were genuinely distressed and came to me looking for help and advice. I keep confidences, and it's not my place to decide what level of risk is acceptable for another person. I said what I could. Lou Elizondo is behind this 2027 alien threat rumor, as we have suspected all along, right? Let's be real. And remember, Lou, why do people keep talking about 2027?
I mean, I'm going to have to ask 2027.
No, I don't know why people keep saying 2027.
Listen.
People are like, oh, Lou said 2027. No, I never said 2027. Stop, guys.
But now that Lou has said this himself, it changes the game. And exactly as I've been saying from the beginning, and as Lou seemingly confirms here, alongside the 2026-2027 date, 2036 has also been floated. The thing is, though, none of this was presented to the people as anecdotal or maybe. It was presented as fact, being shared by a powerful insider who would be in a position to know. Who does that sound like? Mike Disclosure talking, right? Because it's my opinion that that's exactly who told Mike Disclosure that. And then they go tell other people that. And my guess is someone somewhere here in this little ring of fire is one of these people that told Michael Ian Black as well, which is where this whole video started and which kind of opened this can of worms again. This information was spread through proxies who are well known in this community and known friends of Lou's who represented themselves as reaching out on Lou's behalf. I'm not naming names at this time because I suspect that different versions of the story may have been going out through different people, and that if I say who it was coming from, it will out my sources. Now, that's exactly what happens. Lou tells a couple of his most confident confidants, and then they go out, proxies, right, and start telling other people. And they have different versions. So if the story gets out, they know where it came from and who it came from. What does that sound like? Counterintelligence, disinformation, right? Very interesting and very disgusting, if you ask me. All of that said, here are the questions that I've been mulling these last several months. Why is it necessary to reach out to people whose only qualifications seem to be a huge platform to share this information? Great question, Kelly. And it's to spread more disinformation, right? That's why Michael Ian Black was targeted. He has over 2 million followers on Twitter. He's a well-known comedian and actor, right? Interesting. Why was it initially delivered through proxies? Well, that's easy. To see what would happen. Test the waters, right? You're going to send out people you don't really care about. And that's the thing with these proxies. They get used. They're useful idiots, right? Lou Elizondo isn't going to stick up for them or come to their rescue. He's going to let them go down the drain, right? Discarded like a Kleenex, like toilet paper, down the drain. And why are there multiple versions of the same story being told to different people? Well, again, that's how, in my opinion, you track who's revealing the story. Just like when documents get spread out through the UFO community, they give different people different versions of the same document. They might space it differently, capitalize different letters, little things you wouldn't notice, but they'll notice. And they'll say, if it leaks out, they go, this came from Jim because we gave him this version of it, right? And that's what they did with this story, right? Because it was all a lie. And again, only a couple people. Shout out Jeremy Corbell and shout out Stephen Greer for pointing out this is a lie. I don't know the answers to these questions, but they trouble me deeply. Look, I get it. I'm not saying I have the answers either, but I can speculate. And that's what I think is happening. I'm proud of Kelly for coming out with this and saying this. And I know people wanted her to name more names, but I think she named the only name that's important. And that's Lou Elizondo being behind this alien threat rumor for so long. 2027, right? And then publicly going out and trying to distance himself from it. And even gaslight people, like in that Chris Ramsey interview, right? People like myself put clips together and put words in his mouth. And why do people keep saying 2027 when he's literally the one that's been doing it, right? Interesting. Thinks he's like Kaiser Soze and Usual Suspects. I know. I'm not done. Take a look at this clip from Pavel Ibarra from the Psicoactivo podcast, because there's one more name we need to keep in mind, along with Lou Elizondo.
What I do know is that if you guys remember when I did that video about Carl Nell, I did get a little bit more information on that. I was told that Nell was showing a 60-slide presentation. And in one of those slides, he showed something that made people get a little scared. So I don't know what was shown there, but that's what I was told about that. And that those unclassified briefings, Carl Nell was there too. And at this one, I can also say Lou Elizondo was there too. So I guess that if you have questions about this alleged incoming object story or something that may or may not be coming, I think you have to go ask both Lou and Nell, because those guys were the ones who, according to the information that I have, likely were involved in that, talking to people in Congress about that. And I don't know if it's part of the op. I don't know if there is something to it. I don't consider Carl Nell a counter-intel person. So that's what makes me wonder what he was showing in these slides.
Notice how he didn't say he doesn't consider Lou Elizondo a counter-intel agent, right? But now we've added Carl Nell to the mix, right? Who famously said in the SALT conference that, you know, no doubt, right, that there's non-human life on Earth. But he's showing a slide, and this is being told to members of Congress, right? I mean, this is getting out of hand. And you have to know that Congress is like, wait, what is going on? Where's the proof? Right? Is it the document that Jeremy Corbell talked about in his clip on Tubi? Is it this picture that was shown, right, that Michael Ian Black talked about, right, that he said could have been anything, like it was just this blurry thing, right? Is it other documentation that even Stephen Greer brought up, right, that they create to show? Or is it this slide that Carl Nell's talking about? But again, a slide is just part of PowerPoint. What evidence or proof is in it? Clearly, nobody is taking this seriously based on any proof. They're taking it seriously because someone they trust is telling them. Someone they think would never lie to them. But guess what always catches up with you? Lies, right? And a lot of people you screwed over, that's going to come back to bite you. And it seems like it already has. And the reason they throw out the 2030 date as well is because it's so far in the future, right? You have time to manipulate people, use people, right? You can't make it a date just right around the corner, because then, right? So first, back earlier, it was 2027, because that was a long ways away, right? Remember, Lou Elizondo came out in 2017. That would be 10 years later. And guess where we're at? It's another 10 years. So he was looking at a way to buy himself 20 years worth, 10 years at a time, right? And then when 2027 came, well, it's 2036, actually. I've heard 2027 and 2036, right? This starts to change. The story changes. And you start activating people. And you got different levels of people that would accept it. Some people are going to burn out quicker. Some people will last a long time. But all of them will burn out when they realize it's not true. Eventually, they'll realize it's not true. Some people, maybe too much time has passed to be like, you know what, I'm just going to forget about it. Just going to move on, right? Other people may want to talk about it, but they fear, right? That's another thing they use. They use your trust of somebody else that is your friend to not talk about it, just like Kelly Chase and Michael Ian Black. There's names they don't want to name because they have friends with people, right? They're friends with people. They don't want to burn that trust. That's leverage. They know that. They know you're a good person and you won't do that. So they'll, you know what I mean? It's. I get why it's done, but it's done on purpose. It's done on purpose so you won't reveal the name, right? Because you'll be the one that looks bad, right? You're set up to fall. People are set up to fall and take all the blame, while Lou Elizondo can ride into the sunset with Age of Disclosure and his new book coming out, a new tour he's got coming out, right? All so interesting, while everyone else takes the fall. right? And they can just blame everyone else. But again, we're not done. Remember this clip?
You're not the only one that said this. 2027 keeps coming up, and you just said later this year or in 2027. Why is 2027 the year that everybody keeps throwing around? Because it doesn't seem random to me.
Well,
Everybody seems to be saying
heard,
2027.
Yeah, I've heard 2027. I also heard 2036. The capacity in which I heard it, I'd rather not get into. I heard it when I was working with U.S. Space Force, but it was to me it seemed more anecdotal. So I'm probably not best suited to answer the time wise, simply because I didn't come up with that time frame. Okay. But I, like you, I heard that as well, and certainly something we need to pay attention to.
Okay, so again, we've got Lou bringing up 2027 and 2036, right? The exact dates that Kelly Chase was talking about, that everyone is talking, that also Mike Disclosure was talking about, right? And remember, Lou worked at Space Force, and he even admits that he heard these dates at Space Force. Well, I want to give a shout out to Chris Bartell, who turned me on to a couple of videos from Space Force. I'm going to play a few clips and see if you can catch what I catch.
We are pursuing 4 priorities. Number 1, prepare and posture. We must maximize combat readiness by 2027. All of us at U.S. Space Command are laser focused on improving all of our existing forces and capabilities so that we can stitch them together seamlessly when called upon. Now, sometimes this is referred to as closing the kill chain. We must continue to leverage our nation's lead in commercial space technology. Our commercial industry will deliver innovative, state-of-the-art capabilities. We have to modernize our legacy systems, ensure they all work together seamlessly, and deliver new capabilities by 2027 to counter the threats that we now see. Moreover, we must invest in capabilities which won't deliver until after 2027 to ensure we remain postured to be successful in space. We've also embedded cyber experts on the operations watch floor of the Space Information Sharing and Analysis Center, also here in Colorado Springs, and that's an industry-focused working group to share cyber threats. And U.S. Space Command has now signed 185 space domain awareness data sharing agreements. And later this week, I will sign another one with the country of Uruguay. By sharing space information with spacefaring allies and partners and academic institutions, we promote trust required for coalition unified action. Now, our 4th priority is to expand our warfighting advantage. At U.S. Space Command, our primary focus is on our real-time mission, so I like to say our event horizon goes out to about 2027. But we must be thinking beyond 2027 as well to help shape military space power for the future fight.
Interesting. Space Force talking about 2027 that has nothing to do with the big object coming. That sounds like counterintelligence, right? Lou working for Space Force, running counterintelligence in the UFO community to spread that it's aliens that are coming. It has nothing to do with the capabilities of Space Force. And you think a lot of people saw these videos? These videos have hundreds of views, okay? Not a lot of people are talking about this, right? Or know about it, right? That this is what Space Force is trying to do, right? The American government and every government on the planet is trying to build a Space Force because technology is changing. The landscape is changing. There are prosaic explanations for things. I'm not saying aliens don't exist, but there are things the American government is trying to do for national security, and I get it, right? To help protect us in space. That has nothing to do with aliens, right? And they clearly have people that are out there to try to spread disinformation so you don't look at Space Force and what they're doing, or our enemies don't look at Space Force and what they're doing and the capabilities they'll have and what they're aiming for in 2027, 2036. That's an interesting date as well. Check out this clip, again, from Space Force.
In current threat estimates, it's estimated that by 2035, Russia and China could field 16,000 missiles, plus hypersonic swarms and drones. How are companies innovating to stay ahead of this emerging threat? And what mix of proliferated satellites, directed energy, and ground-based interceptors is most likely needed.
Yeah, I think it's a significant threat to our nation, right? We all recognize that. I think those of us that are in the business and receive the threat briefings see it, we feel it. The way we look at the mission and the needs statement is we need, a cohesive set of sensing, we need communications, and we need effectors to have an effect on the outcome. All these things need to be seamlessly commanded, controlled, connected. So we recognize those things. Our innovations have been in each of those areas. We have a broad portfolio. So as we continue to understand the nature of the threat, our ability to defeat it, our ability to be disruptive and differentiated in the market is really important to us.
Interesting. 2035, which might as well be 2036, right? Russia and China. This is just things they're preparing for with these dates. And that's what Lou probably heard. But see, he can twist it to make it seem like it's something else. And then behind the scenes, tell people other things, right? Again, disgusting, vile. And in no way should people be sowing disinformation against the American people like Rick Doty. Because in my opinion, that's all Lou Elizondo is. Another Rick Doty. Rick Doty 2.0. That's where we're at, right? And he even tried to get 1.0 Rick Doty, the OG, and bring him in, right? And Rick Doty confirmed it, even though he tried to backtrack at some point. I kind of believe Rick Doty when he said that, to be honest with you. Right? Just like Stephen Greer, there are some truths they tell, and that's one I believe. Well, look, I'm going to put source links in the description to all of this, so you can go check it out for yourself, confirm for yourself. Make sure to check out that playlist of all the other stuff about 2027. Believe what you want. But in my opinion, there is no object or alien spacecraft headed for Earth in 2027 or 2036. At least not the stories being told behind the scenes, right? If it happens, it's not because they knew. They don't know. No proof or evidence exists. It's just insiders, rumors, right? This story is currency in the UFO community. People are using it behind the scenes to gain trust with podcasters and just people interested in this topic, UFO researchers. They then activate those people to go out and spread the information they want spread, to control a narrative, right, about UFOs and aliens, right, and mask it with this imminent invasion that these insiders know is not happening. And they're laughing all the way to the bank, right, with these people. Look at these people believing this stuff. And then those people think the end of the world is coming. They think aliens are coming. Oh my God, we're a farm, we're a zoo, they're coming, just like Mike Disclosure said, right? Oh my God, holy cow. I mean, I don't know this to be true, but probably is. This is a reliable guy, right? It's disgusting. And a lot of people have been burned by it, right? And a lot of people are turning on Lou Elizondo for good reason. And I'm interested to see the fallout from this video that I made because, they're going to come after me. But don't worry. All part of the game. I'll be just fine. Now, we'll see you guys in the next one, betters. Remember, heads on a swivel, and every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.